All right, welcome back. And so now we head to Kogi Central, not necessarily at the scene of events, really, but into the conversation surrounding the failed recall process. And INEC has said that the petition did not meet constitutional requirements. So what exactly does it take to recall an elected representative? Should there be a vote of no confidence passed on the representative? Joining us on this segment is Mr. Samson Itodo, from the Executive Secretary of YAGA Africa, who joins us virtually on the program. Executive Director, pardon me, of YAGA Africa, who joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, Mr. Itodo. It's good to see you. Welcome to the morning brief.
Good morning to you, Bukola.
Yeah. So let's start with the explanation provided by INEC. INEC is saying only 208,132 signatures were collected, falling short by 29,146. And we know what Section 69 says, that they must have 1/2 + 1 of the required number. But really, the petitioners must have known the numbers that they got. What exactly is happening here in that regard? What do you think transpired?
Well, first, I think that it's important to commend INEC for the declaration that it made yesterday concerning this petition. It was a victory for constitutionalism. They upheld the provisions of the Constitution, and so the INEC does deserve, commendation. These are the kinds of actions that INEC should take in upholding the law as a way of building confidence on the part of Nigerians. And by just this singular action, I think the Commission, is on the path of restoring confidence on the part of citizens if it continues on this trajectory. So I think it is important to reiterate that these kinds of actions inspire confidence on the part of the people. It does so because INEC didn't act outside the law. The law is clear. Section 69, top A, is very clear about the conditions that must be met before a petition is considered by INEC to the extent that it removes a legislator. So what are the conditions? That before you remove a legislator via recall, a petition must be submitted, and that petition must be backed by signatures of 50 + 1% of registered voters in that constituency. It was clear from the signatures that were provided by the petitioners to INEC, they didn't meet that threshold. And so, to your question, I think that that's a question that the petitioners need to answer. But it is very clear that they didn't meet those conditions. And on the basis of that, let's also make this clear, that what INEC did was just a numerical count of the number of signatures. INEC didn't verify those signatures yet. So there was no need to verify those signatures because the numbers, the numerical condition was not fulfilled. And so to that extent, the recall process has failed. And so I think that it is very clear from this process that the framers of our Constitution knew exactly why they introduced those conditions, to making it very difficult to remove legislators, especially in this instant case, because it is clear from this case that they are weaponizing this tool of accountability called recall, to winch hunt this young female politician and also intimidate Senator Natasha. And we're quite delighted with the action taken by INEC, and it should continue on this trajectory.
But even at that, Mr. Itodo, right from the beginning of this part of the conversation, which was the commencement of recall process, we have been querying the numbers when compared with the numbers that came in from the senatorial election in that particular constituency in Kogi State, Kogi Central, between Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the former senator who held that office. The total votes were just about 100,000, split between them. So shouldn't INEC have put on the investigator glasses by scrutinizing these numbers and asking how they were able to get over 200,000 signatures in the first place?
Well, the law is very clear. What INEC is required to do is to verify. If they had met the threshold, INEC would have deployed its officials to the polling units, because it's clear. You know, the regulations for recall process as released by INEC is very clear. So the next stage would have been, and to answer your question about verification is, okay, petitioners have submitted the signatures. INEC will now take those signatures to the polling units, in every polling unit, and within petition and the voters register, and ask those people who have appended their signature to the petition, if they exist, to come and verify. And INEC said in its guidelines that it will use the BVAS to verify these people. So it is the verification process that will determine the veracity, the accuracy of those signatures on the petition. So INEC cannot just engage in any investigation. The verification process is a verification, as the word presupposes, to answer those questions. So I think that what the Commission has done so far, it's in line with the provisions of the law, and INEC cannot act outside the provisions of the law. And we should encourage INEC to continuously act within the law based on the provisions provided in the Constitution, in the Electoral Act, and its guidelines.
So let's assume that the petitioners got 1/2 + 1 at that stage when they presented their petition to INEC, and during the verification process, INEC, found out all of those details that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan spoke to yesterday on the program about how the key petitioners are staff of the state government, and how some of those signatures were false signatures and all of that. Would it also have been INEC's business to look away and say the law has been met?
Well, if the petitioners, right, had met the threshold, INEC will be bound by the law to now activate the second stage, which is the verification stage. Now, it is this verification that would unravel first whether these people who claim to sign this petition, whether they are registered voters in that particular senatorial district or constituency. That's one. Two, whether they signed the petition. And we've raised concerns about the coercion, the intimidation, and the compromise of certain individuals who were deceived, to show up at those locations where those signatures, were collected. You could see that in some of the videos that made it online, that it was just one individual who was signing and writing names and appending signatures of people. So, to a large extent, on the face value, or what you can say, prima facie evidence suggests that this entire process, was signposted by all forms of irregularities. And what should have nailed this in the coffin was the verification process at the polling units, which could not have been activated because the first condition of the number required for the verification process to be activated was not met. And to that extent, this entire process had been brought to a close. And this is a big lesson. And several questions have been raised. That first, the so-called organization, that was behind this petition, the key question that has been raised was whether this organization exists, whether it's a legal personality. And INEC also needs to check that. So you don't have a situation where, political mischief makers and political elements will activate recall which first is a tool of accountability, introducing the Constitution to remove legislators that have lost the confidence of their actors, not legislators who are performing, not legislators who stand and represent political defiance, as we have seen in this instant case. And this is why the Constitution makes those conditions, to make it difficult that this process is activated to remove legislators, especially when they are performing. And in this case, you can clearly see that it doesn't suggest that Natasha has lost the confidence of her people. Instead, they are political actors who are very uncomfortable with some of the positions that she's taken and are hell-bent on removing this performing senator.
And because of that, one of the things that was significant that came through from the conversation yesterday was the absence of any specific statement in the Constitution that prevents a repetition of this process. So let's assume that this has been a learning curve for those who initiated this recall process. Can they repeat it?
Well, they have a right to activate the process. But the key question is, what's the goal? What's the objective? Please read.
Mr. Itodo, just as it was about to land on that point, okay, we must wrap up at this particular point because we have one more base to touch on the program. Mr. Itodo, our regrets at this particular point in time, but of course, we've exhausted the important aspect of the conversation. Mr. Itodo is the Executive Director of Yaga Africa, who has joined us on this particular segment. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll bring you the last bit of the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back.